Wheat Ridge for November 27, 2017. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Monica Duran,
Here.
Zachary Urban,
Present.
Christy Davis,
Here.
Tim Fitzgerald,
Here.
George Pond,
Present.
Leah Dozeman.
Here.
And Mr. Mayor, Larry Matthews and Janice Hobby have excused themselves for this evening, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The council has received the study session notes for October the 16th, 2017. If there are no corrections, we will note those as approved. Seeing no corrections, we'll approve the notes of that study session. And we have some proclamations and ceremonies. We have a presentation from Healthy Eating and Active Living. Is Leslie Levine here?
Thank you. Well, I can come stand here, talk into the microphone. Well, good evening. Good evening. It is such a pleasure to be here tonight to present an award to the City of Wheat Ridge as an elite city for the Heal Cities and Towns initiative. I have had the pleasure of working with the City of Wheat Ridge since 2007, when you all became a Live Well community, and it has been amazing to watch the transformation, the hard work of so many of your agencies and organizations and businesses to transform the community and really offer a lot of opportunities for bicycling, pedestrian activity, access to healthy food. So a sincere congratulations.
Is it going to be? Well, I'm very pleased to receive this on behalf of the city. We have some other folks to speak. Come on up to the mic.
Matt Anderson.
Matt, speak right into the mic.
Great, thanks. Well, we are so thrilled to have achieved this award tonight, and I would like to thank Leslie and her colleagues for all their assistance in helping us, and all cities across Colorado develop policy that improves access to healthy foods and active living. I would also like to thank our elected officials for your support in developing and approving HEAL policies and projects. And finally, I would like to thank the HEAL Advisory Committee. Some of them are here with me this evening. The committee is comprised of city staff, county staff, nonprofit agencies, and of course, Wheat Ridge residents. So thank you all for working to advance the HEAL opportunities in our city and making Wheat Ridge a great place to live, work, and play. Thank you. Matt Anderson, Parks and Recreation Analyst.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm going to give this to you because you've done the work on this, although I'm eating more healthy food now than I. And we have another presentation from the Carnation Festival. Come on up, Joe DeMont. Nice to see you. How are you?
Good. I'm going to drop this thing. Okay. Hi, my name is Joe DeMott. I'm representing the Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival tonight. I am here to thank everyone here, the mayor, council, the police department, the parks department, the public works department, everybody who works so very hard on the Carnation Festival every year. As you look around the room here, you'll see a bunch of plates on the wall, and a lot of people, you can't read them from here, but they are from almost every year. as we celebrate the Carnation Festival, which celebrates the inception of the city of Wheat Ridge. Coming up on our 49th year and preparing for our 50th year in 2019. It is our pleasure to present you with this year's plate. We had a contest through the Wheat Ridge Art League, and this year's winner was Shirley Nakamoto. She calls this Rockin' Carnations, and we'll leave this down for everyone to check out. But it'll be up on the wall for hopefully years and years like the rest of these have. And we look forward to being here every year to present these, and we're gonna have to build a new shelf here in a couple of years. So, but thank you to everyone, and Leah Dozman, who is our parade chair, would like to say a couple of things.
As Joey said, I am Leah Dozman. I have served as the parade chair for the last 2 years. I took over from Steve Keller, who was the parade chair for 12 years. So it's not an easy feat to take over, but we noticed that the city had kind of not had as many plates as there were carnation festivals. So I think it stopped at the 45th or 46th year. So we wanted to reinstate this tradition and present this plate to you this year in gratitude for all of your help over the weekend. I know it's quite taxing, and the police force, fire department, Parks and Rec. We really appreciate you guys being a part of the parade and all that you do for the festival. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're moving into our citizens' right to speak. Citizens who are here and wish to may speak on any matter on the agenda, not on the agenda for usually we have a maximum of about 3 minutes. So our first speaker is Mr. Raleigh Sorrentino, and Ms. Rachel Holteen is on deck.
Raleigh Sorrentino, 4175 Teller Street, Wheat Ridge. I'm here tonight to clarify some things we talked about a month ago on the Anderson Park renovation plan, and you heard me then in support of trying to keep the baseball field. I'm back here tonight, a little bit of a clarification, kind of directed at Mr. Pond here, because a question he asked during that session was how many girls play on that baseball field. And he indicated you've got some daughters that play, I'm assuming, soccer. Wanted to let you know that I have 3 daughters who are all grown now, but they all played soccer. And my wife is also a soccer player. I've attended a lot of soccer games. And it turned out that some people thought that that presentation was characterized by soccer versus baseball. And that isn't the case in my mind. I was trying to preserve the one and only regulation full-size lighted baseball field in Wheat Ridge. And if there was only one regulation soccer field left in Wheat Ridge, and you, Mr. Pond, were behind an effort to try and save that field, I'd be on board with you. You know that there's several people here that are not here tonight that came and spoke to the effect of the trying to keep the baseball field. And I just wanted to request that you step up and offer a motion to reconsider the decision that was made at that meeting. And with this new city council, to see if you can take a look at that renovation plan, which includes a lot of different things. The locker rooms, the gym, other fields there, pavilions, and reconsider the opportunity to leave that baseball field intact for a while until such time as an effort can be made to upgrade the field, possibly upgrade the lights, and obtain some outside support financially to help maintain the one and only regulation baseball field in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrentino. Rachel Hulteen and Cal Strabo on deck.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hulteen, and I live at 4690 Balsam Street. I have very little voice tonight, but I'm here to let everybody know that Wheaties Academy is accepting applications for our 2018 cohort, and we are hosting a mixer on Tuesday, December 5th at the Discovery Tap House. And it's an opportunity for anybody who's interested in applying for the 2018 class to come and meet past Wheaties and learn more about the experience. So I encourage elected officials and staff and anyone in the community who knows people who might be interested to please let them know we're accepting applications through December 18th. Wheaties Academy is a 5-month grassroots leadership program that's unique to Wheat Ridge. This will be the 3rd time we're offering it. We've graduated 32 people in the community, and one of them's on council, Leah Dozman. And it's a really fantastic way to learn how to make a difference in the community from the ground up. And we're going to be accepting between 16 and 18 people. It won't be offered again until 2020. So we just really encourage, we really would love to have a diversity of applicants, because the more diversity we have on the program, the more we're able to reach people in our community. So again, the open house mixer is at Discovery Tap House from 6 to 8 on December 5th. And applications are, you can do it online at wheatiesacademy.org. And if you have any questions, you can send an email to wheatiesacademy@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hulteen. Our next speaker is Cal Strabo. Cal Strabo?
Hi there.
Good evening.
My name is Cal Saravo. I don't want to take up too much time.
Excuse me, Ms. Strabo, would you give us your address too?
I am here regarding 4505 Yarrow. I'm here in regards to a summons. No. What's your address? 555 69th Avenue. So this pertains to some previous city council members. And I want to say this comes with the utmost respect. Our only goal is really to encourage transparency and help the citizens understand where we're coming from. I apologize, I missed the roll call. So if there's any chance that, if you could just let me know who you are. I'm looking for Janice Hope.
She's
She's
not here
no
now.
longer with City Council?
She's not here tonight. If you would leave any items for the council with our clerk, we'll make sure they get distributed.
Thank you so much. And we have Larry Matthews
He's not here also, but just leave all the packages with the
with the city clerk.
clerk, yes,
Okay. And may I ask who the city clerk is?
right next to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I very much thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was everyone that I had signed up on our list. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak tonight under public comment? Okay, we don't seem to have anyone else. Thank you. We'll move to approval of the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda from the council? All right, hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Item number 1 is our consent agenda. Mr. Fitzgerald, would you run us through these items?
Item A, resolution number 43-2017, a resolution supporting reauthorization by the General Assembly of the Colorado Lottery Division in 2018. Item B, a motion to adopt the 2018 City Council meeting calendar. Item C, resolution number 44-2017, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2017 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $350,000 for hailstorm repairs to city facilities and vehicles.
I believe a motion is in order.
I move to approve resolution number 43-2017, a resolution supporting reauthorization by the General Assembly of the Colorado Lottery Division in 2018. I move to, I don't see this here. Going to item C, I'll come back to B. I move to approve Resolution 44-2017, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2017 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $350,000 for hailstorm repairs to city facilities and vehicles. And going back to B, I move to approve the schedule for 2018.
Second.
I think Mr. Pond was first on that one. So we have on the consent agenda items 1A, 1B, and 1C. Motion by Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Pond. Is there any discussion on any of these items? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question about the resolution 44-2017 for the city manager. These supplemental appropriations are more in line with adding these to the budget as opposed to uninsured claims, correct? Is that the case, that we're adding this to the budget versus these aren't uninsured claims?
No, correct, Mr. Urban. These are the proceeds that we received from the insurance company to repair city facilities, and it was non-budgeted, so we have to appropriate those in the budget to spend those.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, which is a public hearing. Mr. Pond, would you introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to introduce Council Bill number 18-2017, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 and Section 16-115 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to authorize temporary waivers from the limitation on hours of construction activity. At issue, municipal code places certain limits on the hours of construction activity as it pertains to private property. Generally, hours are limited in Section 16-115 of the code to the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The code allows an exemption only for construction activity where there is an immediate threat to the public health, safety, or welfare. Recent project examples that are described further have raised the questions whether the code should allow for additional waivers from or exceptions to these general limitations.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have an ordinance number for this ordinance?
This will be ordinance number 1630.
Thank you. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff report on this item?
Can we open the public hearing
Oh, well, you know, I could probably open the public hearing, so I'd like to open the public hearing. Now do we have a staff report?
We do. Mr. Johnstone will give a quick staff report.
Yeah, just briefly, as Mr. Pond correctly notes, the city currently limits hours of construction on private property, so generally projects that involve building permits, to the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and has a limited provision for an exemption for immediate issues of health, safety, and welfare, which we believe to be fairly limiting language in terms of what could be, when those hours could be waived. On a parallel track for projects in the public right-of-way, we have a similar limitation, the same hours. It's actually limited to Monday through Friday, and you also can't work on federal holidays and weekends. In that section of the code, there is more general, fairly broad waiver language that can be granted by the Director of Public Works, and often you'll see construction activities for transportation projects, road projects occur at off hours because of in weighing the costs and benefits, sometimes that's a much less of an inconvenience to people moving on the roadways. So certainly those exemptions are granted occasionally. The issue regarding construction on private property really came to our attention on two projects. Council will recall perhaps several years ago, Denver Water was approved to do a major expansion of the Ashland Reservoir facility, a project that's wrapping up quite nicely, hopefully soon now, but looking very good in my opinion. They needed to do off-hours construction because they're essentially using multiple concrete batch plants for these concrete pours. The pours need to be continuous as a matter of constructability. You can't pour and then stop, pour and then stop. That's not going to be a structurally sound facility. And again, you're taking down one or more entire concrete batch plants for a long period of time. So we were able to approve that because they were approved through a special use permit process. So that was a separate process that we could use to grant them that approval. More recently, a large commercial building inquired with us. They were doing a large slab foundation pour and were feeling like they were going to have similar issues, which really took us to look at the code again and remind ourselves that no, we can't actually grant that exception, that's not something that's contemplated in the code. So we thought we'd bring this to your attention. We think that there probably are valid reasons to grant exceptions from the rule with written justification that clearly explains why. If it's construction best practice, there's arguments that it could be better for public safety in terms of the road impacts on the public convenience and safety of having these, multiple concrete trucks making that type of, creating that type of activity. So we brought it to your attention at an October 16th study session, and you were supportive of moving forward. You had the good recommendation of also considering whether a public notice might be appropriate, so that if the community development director were to grant such a temporary waiver, that the public in the surrounding area be notified. We've taken the liberty to include that in the ordinance. Working with the city attorney, we are recommending that the waiver, if granted, that the public be notified within 300 feet of the subject property. The logic behind that notification requirement is that that's the same distance that we use for all quasi-judicial land use cases, so we're trying to just draw a parallel from another section of the code. So that is the ordinance before you. You have adopted on first reading, and we're here tonight for the public hearing, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you very much. The only thing I might note is that actually on Ashland Reservoir, it was not an expansion of the tanks, it was a contraction.
Right.
But thank you. Before we move into council questions, I would like to invite anyone in the public that would like to come up and speak on this to please come forward. Okay, it doesn't look like we have public comment. Do we have discussion among the council for questions for staff? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
I move to approve ordinance number 1630 and
Madam, Mr. Mayor, you need to close the public hearing.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and a motion is in order. Thank you.
I move to approve Ordinance number 1630, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 and Section 16-115 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to authorize temporary waivers from the limitation on hours of construction activity, order it published, and that it take effect 15 days after publication.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Pond, second by Ms. Duran, to approve Council Ordinance number 1630. Is there any discussion on the ordinance? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Oh, wait. You can vote now. I'm sorry. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 3 is an ordinance on first reading. Mr. Pond, would you please introduce this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 20-2017, an ordinance approving a radio tower space license agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge and DMR Networks Incorporated. At issue in 2016, North Table Mountain was selected as an additional radio communications tower site for the City of Wheat Ridge, the City of Lakewood, and the West Metro Fire Protection District to improve radio signal strength in areas lacking adequate coverage. DMR Networks owns a radio tower site at this location and has agreed to lease space at the tower site for the purpose of locating and operating Wheat Ridge Police Department radio communication equipment. This ordinance will approve the tower space license agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge and DMR Networks Incorporated. This is an ordinance on first reading. Is a motion in order?
It is.
I move to approve Council Bill number 20-2017, an ordinance approving a tower space license agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge and DMR Networks Incorporated on first reading. Order it published. Public hearing set for Monday, December 11th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and then it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Pond and a second by Ms. Davis to approve this ordinance on first reading. Is there any discussion? Mr. Urban.
I just had a quick question for the city attorney. I understand this is on first reading, but as it relates to the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act, I understand there's some indemnification language in this contract, and it appears as though it's written as though it's a contract between an entity and a company, and I just want to make sure that we're clear that that it's written in such a way that, I mean, obviously we're leasing space from them, but I just want to make sure that we're carving out our appropriate governmental immunity in that regard.
And yes, we are. Here, we are we're the licensor, and so they're the licensee. And it's fine to have full indemnity going from private entity to the government, but you're absolutely right that if the government's doing the indemnifying, I always precede our indemnifications by within the limitations imposed by the Constitution and statutes. Here, not necessary because the indemnification is going the other direction.
Right, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions? Will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 4 is an ordinance on first reading. Mr. Urban, would you please introduce this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One second. Council Bill 21-2017, an ordinance amending 22-66 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws regarding use tax applied to construction equipment and credit for sales or use tax previously paid to another municipality. At the regular general election held on November 8, 2016, the electorate of the city approved a ballot question 2E, which increased sales and use tax levied by the city by 0.5% to 3.5% of the purchase price. Therefore, it is necessary to amend the Code of Laws to implement this electoral decision. City Council approved ordinance number 1614 on February 27, 2017. However, 2 code provisions in section 2266 were not changed to reflect the voter-approved tax increase to 3.5%. This proposed ordinance makes that appropriate change.
This is an ordinance on first reading, and a motion would be appropriate at this time.
I move to approve Council Bill 21-2017, an ordinance of amending 2266 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws regarding use tax applied to construction equipment and credit for sales or use tax previously paid to another municipality, on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, December 11th at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect upon adoption.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Urban, seconded by Ms. Duran, to approve Council Bill number 21-17 on first reading. Is there any discussion on the motion? Will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 5 is a resolution. Ms. Duran, would you please introduce this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 41-2017, a resolution approving addendum number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Lakewood, the City of Wheat Ridge, and the West Metro Fire Protection District for the use and maintenance of a radio communications system. Issue: in 2014, the City of Wheat Ridge, the City of Lakewood, and the West Metro Fire Protection District entered into an IGA to share the radio system sites on Mount Morrison and Green Mountain. In 2015, the same 3 entities participated in the procurement of radio equipment to place an 8-channel, 800 megahertz radio site on an existing tower site located on North Table Mountain near Golden. The location of this site offered the agencies the ability for improved radio signal strength in areas lacking adequate radio coverage in Wheat Ridge and Lakewood. An amendment to the 2014 IGA is required to address responsibilities, frequency allocations, and site costs for the new North Table Mountain site.
Thank you. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff report?
We do. Chief Brennan is here.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So to give you some history on this IGA, in 2005, the City of Wheat Ridge received a $1.6 million grant from the Department of Homeland Security to procure radio equipment, so mobile radios for police cars, portable radios for officers, and also mobile and portable radios for the Wheat Ridge Fire Department. What the grant didn't cover was sort of what I call the radio backbone, the infrastructure that makes those radios work. And we entered into an IGA back in 2005 with the West Metro Fire Department. West Metro and Lakewood shared a radio backbone at 2 radio tower sites, Mount Morrison and Green Mountain. And we had some spare frequencies we were able to allow West Metro to borrow. We still own them, but they borrow them. And essentially it allowed us to get about a quarter share of that radio system, which would have cost us millions of dollars to build out on our own. In 2005, the radio tower that we have just outside this building was inadequate to provide radio coverage for the entire City of Wheat Ridge. In fact, it only provided radio coverage for about 65% of the city. Radio coverage in other areas was intermittent. So the standard is 95%. That's what the standard best business practice is. So by entering into this agreement back in 2005, we were able to use both the Green Mountain Tower site and the Mount Morrison Tower site, but we still had areas of the city where radio coverage was intermittent, as did the City of Lakewood. So as this IGA has continued to work over the years and build out, we had the opportunity, and when I say we, West Metro Fire, Lakewood, and Wheat Ridge, to purchase space on another tower site, and that was the agreement that you heard on first reading, to use that, to lease that tower site. And that particular site will give us coverage for the entire city. In fact, even in the areas in the north part of the city along Clear Creek where you have some land barriers there that keep radio signal strength from reaching, this site will cover. So in the partnership that we have with them and in negotiating this, this new agreement will allow Lakewood to keep their Green Mountain site. It allows West Metro to keep their Mount Morrison site, and it gives us a site that we haven't had since 2005. So it gives us the capability, should this IGA ever fall apart, and I don't think that it will, but if it were to happen, we would have a radio tower site that would provide good radio coverage for us. It actually comes and reduces our total cost in terms of what we pay for radio site leasing and then our maintenance fees to keep our radio system, the radio system we have here on site working. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions, but it gives you the history of it. We think it's a really good thing, for the city of Wheat Ridge and the police department moving forward in the future.
Thank you. Do we have questions for Chief Brennan? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it relates to the technical services and operations aspect of the contract, indicates a level of service on the priorities 1 and 2 and 3, and it indicates that service will be provided within 1 hour of call out. So are they going out to service that within 1 hour, or that they'll be contacted within 1 hour to go out and service it within a certain amount of time, or will they be out servicing it within that hour?
So the priorities on there are based on, the sort of safety welfare kind of perspective. So priority 1, they would respond within 1 hour. It would be that critical. If our radio system went down and we didn't have the ability to communicate, or that ability was limited, and we've been tested on that a couple of times. The radio maintenance services that we get from the City of Lakewood radio technicians is superior. In the past, we've used private contractors, and while they are good, no problems in regards to the services they provided, other contract workers, and we would have delays in getting them out. So it's a really good bang for the buck for the City of Wheat Ridge.
And as far as our contract with that antenna site and access to that antenna site and their requirements for four-wheel drive vehicles and all that, the City of Lakewood is well aware of those contract requirements and has experience doing that and whatnot.
All 3 of the sites that we're talking about are located in high locations, so they have the ability to get in and out. And that site really provides, not only good service for us, but it also helps Lakewood with the problem that they have in the northwest area of their city. When you locate radio tower sites and they're located on mountains, that frequency can't go through rocks and hills and canyons, and so they had some of the same challenges that we did with Clear Creek site. So they can get to all of those sites and provide service to them.
Right. And is there any kind of, as much as we want to use this as a primary tower for our services, is there a backup tower that we would sort of back up to or use as an alternate?
Right, so that's a great question. So we really have access to all 3 towers.
Okay.
That would be our primary tower, but when an officer keys their mic, depending on where they are in the city, that signal is going to go to the tower that provides the best strength and level of service. So all 3 of us will still be using all 3 sites. This just gives us ownership of the site and more of a buy-in in terms of that backbone and infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Chief. A motion would be in order at this time.
I move to approve Resolution Number 41-2017, a resolution approving Addendum Number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Lakewood, the City of Wheat Ridge, and the West Metro Fire Protection District for the use and maintenance of a radio communication system.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rand and a second by Mr. Urban.
Or 10-4, as it were.
Right. And to approve Resolution Number 41-2017. Is there discussion upon the motion? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
The motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 6 is a bid and a motion. Ms. Davis, would you please introduce this for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve payment to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $137,836.40 for the purchase of 52 APX-6500 mobile radios and accessories. The issue is that these new radios will replace current radios utilized in the police department's vehicles fleet. The current radios are nearing the end of life and are no longer able to be upgraded and needed software that is considered beneficial for public safety users. And the good news is, based off of prior actions, it looks like that we had approved funding in the amount of $226,750. So it looks like we're getting a deal. And that was in the 2017 budget to purchase the installation of the new radios. So that's good.
Thank you. Mr. Goff, do we have a report on this?
You doing a report? Just questions? Report?
Well, just.
He's going to do a report?
Just very briefly, these were radios that we purchased in 2005 with that UASI grant I spoke about earlier. They've reached the end of their life. Software and hardware changes and upgrades in time have resulted in our need to replace these. We had included it in the 2017 budget, and through the state bid, we were actually able to get these radios for considerably less than what we had planned on.
Terrific. Well, it looks like Christmas is coming a little early. Do we have any questions for the chief on this item? Mr. Urban.
I don't know if this would be the appropriate item to ask this question on, but as it relates to this radio equipment, is this something that you would consider using encryption on, or what's your thoughts about using encryption as it relates to public safety communications and using encryption as it relates?
I heard two questions. One is, are these radios capable of encryption? Yes, they are. Okay. And so there will be some of the radio channels that we currently use are encrypted, for major events, tactical events, those kinds of things. My perspective on encryption is there are situations that occur where radio traffic needs to be encrypted. Right now, all our channels aren't encrypted, and different departments have different perspectives on that. But certainly for tactical major events that we have in this city, I think we need to have that encryption. So these radios are capable of that. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions for Chief Brennan?
Mr. Mayor, just one clarification too. Just so council knows and the public, we created a special fund several years ago, equipment replacement fund, and we put money in that every year from the general fund, and that's where this expense is coming from. So it's not coming directly from the general fund, but the special fund set up for these purposes.
Terrific. Any further questions? Well, a motion would be in order.
Thank you. I remember as a little kid, my dad having a police radio that would run all day long with all that stuff, just saying. I move to approve payment to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $137,836.40 for the 52 APX-6500 mobile radios and accessories.
Second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Dozman. We have a motion by Ms. Davis, second by Ms. Dozman, to purchase 52 mobile radios. Any discussion upon the motion? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 7 is a bid for some more work. Ms. Dozman, would you please introduce this?
Gladly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to award contract to Barker Rinker CCAT Architecture in the amount of $352,255 for Anderson Park renovation design and construction documents. At issue, the scope of this contract award includes design services for renovating the existing Anderson building and bathhouse, as well as the existing Anderson Park per the adopted Anderson Park master plan. The renovation of Anderson Park is one of the 4 projects approved by voters through the 2E bond issue, Investing for the Future, in November of 2016.
The improvements associated with this project are intended to provide an updated park that functions effectively for the current uses, future trends, and park users.
Thank you. Mr. Goff, do we have a report on this?
We sure do. Joyce Manwaring is here for a report.
Welcome, Ms. Manwaring.
Thank you. So I would add that this will be the single consultant contract for the design services for both the renovation of the bathhouse, the Anderson Building, and the park. At one point, we had discussed having two separate contracts, one for the landscape architect and one for the vertical construction, the building architect. So this is a comprehensive contract for concept development, design development, and construction drawings.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Manwaring? Have you entered into negotiations with the CMGC yet, or have you discussed?
No, this will be part of the scope of their work. They'll assist us in that process and the selection process. So no, we haven't even put out, and when this contract is awarded, we'll start the process for requests for qualifications.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself and give us your address.
My name is Raleigh Sorrentino, 4175 Teller Street. I'm a taxpayer, and on this particular item, I'm going to ask you to vote no. This fee includes work that really doesn't need to be done, especially if you consider keeping the baseball field. The landscaping and the earthwork that needs to be done out there is an unnecessary cost. And I'm a taxpayer, and at the very least, this expenditure can be distributed over a longer period of time and would allow some other considerations to come into play, outside interests that might help save the baseball field. Therefore, I request as a taxpayer, these are my tax dollars, I encourage you tonight to vote no on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sorrentino. Is there any other public comment on this item? Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions for staff on this? Yes, Ms. Davis.
I just want to follow up on one item. I know that I missed when we originally voted this plan in, but I do know that Ms. Hoppy had asked about the baseball field, and there was, I think, a request made that we look at, is there opportunities to put a baseball-sized field somewhere else in the city? What are some of the work that's being looked at on that, the thoughts on that? Because I do recall watching the tape back that was a request made.
Well, at this point in time, there hasn't been any additional work done to look at relocating the baseball field. It would be a comprehensive process if we looked at, I mean, it's just a comprehensive process. We need to decide whether to look in our own land, if there's possible land acquisition, areas available to relocate the baseball field, but at this time we haven't done any of that work.
So I guess my question would be, my understanding from that city council meeting was that was a request made. So how does that go forward? I mean, kind of what you just said was, well, it was a request made, but we're not doing it. I mean, so is it just that it's on, that it is something that comprehensively you're going to have to look at, or is it my understanding that wasn't a valid request? I guess that's where I'd just like clarification, especially based off of the request and again, I apologize, I missed that meeting.
It's no problem. It is recognized as a request, and there was direction received. It just hasn't. I have not started that process yet.
So like timeline, I mean, again, is that like, and again, I don't mean to harp, but I mean, is that a process that could start 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, a year and a half from now? I mean, how do you see that moving forward?
Well, I can certainly put an outline together beginning after the first of the year to see what the steps would be involved in moving forward with the process and report back to council on progress.
Thank you. Does that
Yeah,
answer your
thanks.
question? Okay. Any further questions of staff? A motion would be in order.
I move to award contract to Barker Rinker CCAT Architecture in the amount of $352,255 for Anderson Park renovation design and construction documents.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzgerald. So we have a motion by Ms. Dozman to award a contract to Barker Rinker CCAT for work at Anderson Park. A second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Do we have discussion on the motion? Mr. Pond.
Thank you. I will be voting for this, but I want to just make a couple of comments in response to both the right to speak comments and the comments on this item by Mr. Sorrentino. Thank you for coming tonight. And I do appreciate the comments and the ones that you had last time. So I'll kind of go all the way back and tell you that I absolutely want my girls to play baseball. That's why I brought it up last time, not because, and they are soccer players. And so we are absolutely looking for softball and baseball opportunities for our girls. My point at that meeting is that an adult men's regulation field is not one that I'm aware of that will allow for women's softball, fast pitch, Little League, or any other thing to retroactively played. I know for a fact that the distance between home plate and the pitcher's mound and out to second, to the edge of second and the infield are not the same dimensions for the other ones, and I've looked that up. So I don't know how they do it, and that was my question that night, was how do you take a men's regulation field and shrink it to allow for a women's team? And I don't think you can do that, and that's fine. But that's where I kind of came down on my conclusions that it was essentially a single use. So that's all to say that I do think that the contract and the scope of work is appropriate right now. I appreciate the fact that we are, and I do support the fact that we will look elsewhere in the city and continue to try to support baseball. So I will be voting for this.
Any additional discussion on this item? Hearing none, would the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 5-1 with Councilmember Urban voting no.
Thank you. Item number 8 is a bid motion. Ms. Duran, would you introduce this for us, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to award contract for professional services in the amount of $865,683 to ACOM Technical Services, Inc., Greenwood Village, Colorado, for the initial period of December 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2018, for ongoing program management services for the Investing for the Future program. Is there a staff report?
We do. Ms. Duran, Scott Brinker, Public Works Director, will give a staff report.
Yes, thank you. As council recalls, about a year ago or so, voters approved a sales tax increase to fund our Investing for the Future projects, more specifically the Wadsworth Boulevard reconstruction, improvements around the Gold Station, Ward Road TOD station area, the Clear Creek Crossing, the hook ramp constructions there, also some public infrastructure improvements in the site, and then also Anderson Park. The contract we have requested for approval in front of you tonight is to allow our consultant, who we've selected through a extensive procurement process, AECom, to get going on a lot of the work we need to do to get these projects going. Kind of to summarize it a little more generally, this consultant will serve really more as an extension of staff for this over $30 million worth of improvements that we don't have the capacity in-house to drive ourselves. The hook ramp construction, for instance, it's an interstate highway project. It's got to be built to CDOT standards, not only the workload standpoint, but just, having the expertise to, build an interstate related improvement, which, our staff doesn't do. So there's a workload standpoint, there's an expertise. But I think in summary, for all these projects, generally what we're looking at is a review of the public infrastructure projects and management of the construction. And a lot of these, or at least the Ward Road Station area and Wadsworth, Clear Creek, we're anticipating a lot of private redevelopment with that. Clear Creek Crossing, obviously, with the development there. So there'll be land use cases, development plans to review, making sure both the public and the private improvements are constructed correctly. Ward Road Station, we've been in front of council, I think, at least a couple times over the last year, presenting that visioning process and all the improvements that we need to do around there. So this contract will allow us to get going on a lot of those and, get these improvements constructed that we want to do and do the obligation we have to the voters with the money that's been given to us. So recommend approval here.
Thank you, Mr. Brink. Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on this issue? Don't see anyone. Are there questions of council for staff? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it relates to the services that it will be provided, I'm curious as it relates to the sort of forward-facing services that they're providing in relationship to interaction with the public or other entities like RTD or CDOT or Denver Water. So how will it work that will they be interacting with those entities, or will they be interacting with city staff and then city staff will be interacting with those entities, or how will that interface move forward?
Yes, as part of their project management responsibilities, they will be interacting with the other agencies overseen by our staff. It doesn't mean that our staff is not going to be involved. We're still going to be heavily involved. It's just that the consultant will be doing a lot of the leg work, the nuts and bolts work that we may normally do, but staff will still be actively involved. We still have to come to you, to council, and give reports, updates. We will be back in about another year or so to amend or update this contract as needed. It's only for a year. But again, when you talk about the interaction with other agencies, there's going to be a big component in their contract that we have written in there regarding public notification, public process. These are all very visible projects that impact the public greatly, not necessarily or only for the expense part, but construction, Clear Creek Crossing, for example, the hook ramps, there's going to be traffic impacts to the traveling public there. So there's a big public information, public outreach component in AECom's contract as well. We feel that's real important to have in there.
And I get the need for the public outreach and the public information aspect of these services, but I guess I'd like to see that the city of Wheat Ridge be the face of those services, and that the services provided by this agency are sort of behind the scenes while the city staff are provided that opportunity to be the forward-facing persons in interacting with the general public, so that at least in the as you're dealing with the citizens of Wheat Ridge, that they're working directly with city staff versus consultants or contractors to the extent possible, just given that it's hard to know when is that consultant acting on our behalf or acting in their own best judgment, and where's the where's the line as it relates to, I'm just curious as to what sort of leash do you have them on as it relates to those activities, and what kind of decision-making powers do they have in these types of roles that they're acting on our behalf in?
Yeah, that's, you're correct. I mean, the staff is still going to be the front face on this. I mean, we have to be. When the public has questions, they're automatically going to call staff. They're not going to know that we have a consultant behind the scenes, and if they do know, they're not going to call them. They're more comfortable calling staff. So staff is managing the consultant. They're doing the nuts and bolts work more behind the scenes. We'll still be the front face. We're still accountable to the public, just like we have been in the past at the public meetings and presenting what's going on. Again, the consultant is just more of what I would call a staff extension, doing the yeoman's work behind the scenes there.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Actually, we haven't had a motion yet. Any further questions for staff? Okay,
Motion in order.
I would entertain a motion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I move to award a contract for professional services in the amount of $865,683 to ACOM Technical Services, Inc., Greenwood Village, Colorado, for the initial period of December 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2018, for ongoing program management services for the Investing for the Future program.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Duran, a second by Ms. Davis to award a contract to AECOM. Is there discussion upon the motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. That concludes our business portion of the meeting. For now, go to Mr. Goff for any city manager's matters.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items as a reminder for council and the public. There is a public meeting coming up this Thursday. CDOT is hosting a meeting on the I-70 Kipling preliminary design for redesign of that major intersection into Wheat Ridge. That is this Thursday from 5 to 7 at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center. It is an open house format. There won't be any formal presentations, but CDOT staff will be available to answer questions. So, and some good news. I think I updated council about this several weeks ago, but we got the official notification from FEMA that the city has received an increase to a Class 5 in the National Flood Insurance Program. This will qualify certain properties in Wheat Ridge that are in flood zones for a 25% discount on their premium cost of their flood insurance. So this was because of, I think there's very few Class 5s in the state of Colorado. So Mark Westberg in our Public Works Department gets a credit for most of this. He's done a lot of work to make sure that we got the points necessary to increase this to a Class 5. So if there's any citizens out there that are in a flood plain or zone or way that have questions about this, feel free to call Mark Westberg here at the city. And there's also information on the website about this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dahl, anything in the city attorney's?
Yes, one item, and I regret that I'll have to draw your attention back to item number 3. You don't have to take any further action on it, but Councilmember Urban is absolutely correct. I had assumed that this was yet another lease on the space that we have in the big tower here at the city. Clearly we're the licensor, not the licensee. Not true, of course. This is the city licensing space on a private tower, so we're the licensee. And I can't determine if our office reviewed this contract, so I'm not going to say that we didn't. If we did, we missed it. So I will check, and Dan's going to check too to see sort of where the contract went. It's very much a classic property owner's contract. Most of it's okay because of what the city's doing here and why the city needs it, but we'll want to look at the indemnification provisions to make them subject to the Constitution and statutes. And I also noticed the insurance provision has sort of a regular policy required. Typically, when the city rarely has to provide insurance, we wipe this out and we say, look, we'll put it under our CIRSA umbrella policy, and that's usually fine for everyone. I suspect that these were just not brought to the licensor's attention. I'm sure they'll probably be fine with it, and I'll work with the police department. Because this was first reading, I don't believe and I don't advise that you have to go back and reconsider and not do this tonight. We've got time for me to make these, I think, few changes, make certain that the licensor is all right with this version, and will reflect the corrected version when it comes to you on second reading. I apologize for not knowing that, and appreciate Councilmember Urban's catching it for me, so thank you. That's all I've got. Anytime, fair enough.
Billing ready. Elected officials matters. Our city treasurer, Mr. DiTullio.
Thank you. I passed out on the dais tonight. I didn't pass out, but I passed out this paper. That is the current roofing permits and inspection report. And if you notice that as of November 26th, our revenues on residential roofing permits are $2,945,789.66. The city staff has processed 6,351 roof permits. And then on the very back of the report, you'll see that we've spent about $785,095 on contract labor, with another $11,000, almost $12,000 to Kelly Services, which is administrative. But I also wanted to mention, I sent out an email tonight, this report only includes residential roof reports that is by contractors. So there's an additional revenue source. So far, we've had 286 commercial permits pulled and 93 homeowner permits pulled, and we're going to get this information on the report for the next time. But that's an additional $639,506 in revenue. But those expenses are included in this back page because they process those permits just like everybody else. They went through the process. So there's an additional $639,506 that should be displayed on the report. And that's also mentioned in the email I sent to you this afternoon. So with that, I wanted to mention also, I wanted to thank council for, and Councilmember Davis for adding Airbnbs to the survey coming up in the spring. In terms of Airbnbs, I was going to ask council to look at adding the question, should these Airbnbs be taxed like a short-term lodging tax? Because right now the voters approved the 10% lodging tax back in the 90s. And really, an Airbnb, it's less than 30 days, so it's a short-term rental. And Denver charges a lodger's tax to those, and Airbnb actually collects that money up front. So if you go through Airbnb, they tack on the sales tax or the lodging tax for that tenant. And I think that with, back about a year ago, talking to one of our real estate brokers in the city, we had almost 80 Airbnbs operating in the city that we knew of. So if you take 80 plus now, because it's been a year, plus the impacts these Airbnbs have on the neighborhoods with traffic and additional people living there and moving around the neighborhoods, I think that the lodger's tax would be a fair thing to ask the voters, or on the survey, do you support Airbnbs, and also do you support applying the lodger's tax which the voters approved? So I wanted to make that recommendation for the city manager and council to possibly consider that on the survey, because Airbnbs were added by council. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is with this additional funding with the roofing permits, you're seeing a lot of new improvements in the city and a lot of new roofs. I wanted the council just to maybe think about this for the spring and consider it. It's your call because you're the policymakers. But if you looked at some kind of a matching grant program, you see, if you drive around Wheat Ridge, especially in the eastern part of town, you see a lot of dead and dying trees that are around. We're at Tree City, USA. A lot of old dead trees, and the Siberian elms, which are considered a weed tree, that if council considered with Local Works possibly, because Local Works had bought a bunch of trees in the past when they first started in 2005 or 6. And then also look at our Wheat Ridge Business District grant program. Look at a matching grant program for citizens to actually have these trees cut down on their private property, because they're an eyesore and they're dangerous, but a lot of people can't afford a lot of, $5,000, $10,000, but you look at a matching grant program up to $1,000 or up to $2,000, so that citizens could actually contract privately with a contractor to trim trees or cut them down, and then they'd have to produce the receipts and the information to have a matching grant program, similar to the business district, and maybe that could be in conjunction with Local Works working together with the tree program. That was just a suggestion. You guys make the call on that, but I'm always thinking about what could be best for the city like you are, and I thought maybe I might bring that up as you can maybe discuss it in the spring when you know more where the budget is also. But I think $100,000 or $200,000 max would go a long way of goodwill to clean up the city with the dead trees and obviously get some new trees planted and kind of start that urban forest looking new again. So with that, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DiTullio. Our city clerk, Ms. Shaver.
I wanted to tell council about two things that I attended. On Saturday, November 18th, the county had something for the election. These are both election related. The risk limiting audit, which they had not asked us to participate in before. And this is kind of a new test that I think it's pretty safe to say there's some skepticism about the real need for this, that it was probably something thought up by a mathematician in California, that we needed to have this to find out if our election was valid or not. And it actually went pretty quickly. We were done in just about an hour, because we only had to seek out 29 ballots. And what this amounted to was, thank goodness we weren't Arapahoe County. They had several close races, and the algorithm required them to audit 550 ballots or something like that. We only had to do 29. And the process involved these algorithms would create, you have to find ballot number so-and-so from batch number so-and-so, and it's in group so-and-so. And the county staff already there was some repetitions in boxes, so we pulled like 24 boxes, or 25 boxes. Yeah, 25 boxes. And from there we had to locate, and it told you exactly which ballot you had to find. So there were these groups of people that were like clerks from Lakewood and Wheat Ridge and Arvada participated, and then county people. So we would open the box that had break the seal, and you had to verify, and it was written down what the number of the seal was, so you had to clarify. And then once it was open, there are several folders in there, about 10 folders, and each had about 200 ballots. So there would be like 2,000 ballots in this box. You knew which batch it was in, and they were each of the folders was numbered by batch. So you knew which batch it was, and then you had to flip through and find that number, this particular ballot. Set it aside in that box and move it on. Then we did that with 29 of them. And then it went to another station where there was a computer screen that had a picture of that ballot. And you had to, those folks that were doing that, they would physically look at that ballot and see if that's what it was. And it was. There was one, it wasn't really an error. It was, we only had to test ballots on the District 2 school board race. And there was one ballot, there was the District 3, the one that didn't have opposition. Somebody filled in the ballot, little circle, and then put an X on it. And so that doesn't count as a ballot, but it was unopposed. It doesn't count as a vote, but that race was unopposed, so it doesn't affect the race. So it really didn't matter, and it wasn't on what we were having to test anyway. So, and then after it's compared with the computer, the vote comes back to the box, new seals are put on and written down of what they are, and then and it's put exactly in the same place it was before, in that batch, in that box, new seal, and written down. And it was a real interesting process. Then I don't know how the Russians are going to get into that. Then on Wednesday last, we had the canvas, and that also didn't take real long. It was just kind of looking at all the quantities of everything they did. I have a copy of it. It's quite lengthy and sort of boring if you like a lot of numbers and statistics. You're welcome, anybody's welcome to come in and look at it. But they said there would be 8 more days, so that would be till like Thursday, I think. This coming Thursday, they had to wait for some overseas or provisional, some other kind of ballot to clarify those. And then that will be added to all of the totals, and there, I think, for clarification. And but except for those few ballots, the results are official and are available on the county website, which we have a link to on our city election page. So anyway, it was just, I know nobody cares about that stuff, but I do. It was interesting.
Actually, NPR had a piece on the radio on Saturday morning about the process of auditing these, and they had people in a room and picked balls from a ball shooter or something like that. But well, thanks. So you think we got a fair election?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Let's get down to the,
it's a pretty.
Let's get
pretty.
Down
It's
to the important-
it's about as secure as it can possibly
Okay.
be. I don't.
Thank you for attending those meetings and for your interest in that, because I know it can be interesting. So let's hear from council. Ms. Dozman, do you have something for us tonight?
I would just invite the public to a meeting at Pennington Elementary. It is the 29th, which, what is that? Wednesday, the 29th, from 5 to 6. They're having a community stakeholder meeting in regards to changes that might be happening with Pennington, so that affects our community. There's also the JCBL meeting that evening from 5:30 to 7:30, and that's the meet and greet, which I think some of you might also be at, but I plan to make an appearance at both.
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Duran.
Thank you. I have a couple announcements. I want to extend an invitation to the residents of Wheat Ridge. We have our holiday celebration on the Ridge, which is hosted by Local Works this Saturday, December 2nd, from 3 to 7 p.m. So come and join us. Also, the next one is at the Wheat Ridge Library on December 9th. They are having a gingerbread house decorating contest from 1:30 to 3:30. And the address there is 5475 West 32nd Avenue. And you do have to register, and you can either do that at the library, or you can call 303-235-5275. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple additions on the event on December 2nd. I have that it's 4 to 7. Is it 3 to 7 or 4 to 7? It is? Okay, so on the website it says 4 to 7.
But let me double check while you're talking.
Okay, so double check while I'm talking. And then just a couple other things about that event for those folks who haven't been there. So if you get there early, put your name on the list because you can have your picture taken with Santa. And he'll be at, Santa and his helpers will be at Wheat Ridge Cyclery. And then a couple other things going on there. It's a lovely tree lighting, yes it is. but there'll be other activities such as free horse-drawn hay rides, hot chocolate and cookies, and then there's crafters and artisans that'll be selling their wares at the artisan market, and some also local restaurants providing food. One other request would be to bring a non-perishable food item to the Wheat Ridge Grange to donate to the local food bank. So just some extra items on that for those of you who've not been there. And then, I don't know, Patrick, if you want to...
Well, Local Works website says it's 3 to 7, and the city's website says 4 to 7. I'm pretty sure it's 3 to 7, but we'll get it clarified tomorrow.
Okay.
On the website.
Is that it? Terrific. Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sort of bookending the holiday celebration on 38th, invite everybody to the Anthony's M Vision and Gold sort of grand opening as it relates to their reinvestment in their shop after the hailstorm on December 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. and they're located at 44th and Pierce, and they've done a lot of great work in rebuilding their store after the hailstorm. So I encourage everybody to just come on down and see what they've done to their store after they've put a lot of great work into rebuilding their operation there. And that's again on December 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. And then on Sunday, on December 3rd from 1 to 5 p.m., the Wheat Ridge Co-op is having a holiday bazaar, and the Wheat Ridge Co-op is at 7250 West 38th Avenue, which is just at the dead end of Upham there at 38th Avenue. Encourage people to attend both those events.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pond.
Nothing more tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pond. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Nothing more tonight. Thank you.
Well, you guys are making it quick here. I want to thank all of the HEAL team, the Healthy Eating, Active Living, and congratulations on the award that we had. I'd like to thank Ms. Dozman for her work at the Carnation Festival Parade, and Mr. DeMott for his chairmanship of the festival. I thought it was a very successful festival, and I'm happy to receive a new plate, and I hope that that tradition continues. I'm going to be taping a little segment on Thursday morning at about 8:30 on Channel 31, I think, to promote our Christmas festival on the 3rd, right? The 3rd? Second. Okay. Well, the second. We also, and with Santa, you'll be able to register for your child to visit with Santa and leave your cell phone number, and I think get a text that your turn is coming up, so you don't have to stand in line to have that happen. We've got merchants at the Four Seasons and other spots going on, so I hope everyone will really take an opportunity to come out and support this festival. It's a great opportunity. I hope everyone had a very happy Thanksgiving. With the increasing darkness on our streets, I hope everyone will drive a little bit slower and watch out for all the children that are out in our neighborhoods. They're our most precious assets. So with that, I declare our meeting adjourned, and thank you so much.